Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the animation industry going up in flames. A lot of animators' careers going up in flames. This is not to brag. I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to be like neener. I think it's terrible, but it is indicative of kind of the landscape right now that, animation is being outsourced. There are union negotiations going on right now, but I'm not sure how that's going to go because there actually is a whole channel. I didn't tell you about this. There's a whole channel out there on YouTube. There's a woman who was a member of SAG-AFTRA, and she basically said after the union talks, like all the work dried up because nobody's hiring.
Well, yeah.
And
shocker. No, you don't say.
And I understand people trying to get what they can get while they can, but I'm just telling you, I think even if the Animation Guild gets what they want, they're going to kick all this work over to another country. It's not good. Anybody you talk to is saying it's not good. And this is with these movies doing really well. Inside Out 2 did really well. But we're going to talk about this because we had this podcast episode with Fresher Luke, who is a self-described animator in exile. He has done work for a variety of studios, including Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. And he said, yeah, the work is drying up. And I don't think it's going to get better. We're going to talk about it. The Wrap is actually covering it, which is shocking. Usually they don't cover animation that closely. So before you get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Not a lot of woohoos in Burbank. So this is, again, this comes from the Wrap. It just dropped this morning. It's very similar to the stuff we've been talking about. They said animation anger. Hollywood artists face multifaceted crisis as contract talks near. So they said, yeah, even though they're producing successes like Inside Out 2, many are facing mass layoffs and overseas outsourcing as Hollywood slashes production costs. And, we have been talking about this for years and people think we're just a bunch of haters, but we're not. We're telling you how businesses think.
Yeah, I guess it's not that hard.
No, it's not that hard. It's basically animation for the most part is, as much as we love it, it's incredibly expensive to produce.
It's very expensive. And
unless there's some kind of a merchandising angle to it, it does not return the investment. You're talking $500,000 an episode for a cartoon show. If there aren't toys or something, I mean, I know everybody shits on 80s toys and 80s cartoon shows, but the reason that they were allowed to produce them is the toy sales basically bankrolled the cartoon. But they said over the past few weeks, the director of the Mitchells versus the Machines has called on animators to anonymously share their personal struggles to forge sustainable careers in Los Angeles.
Well, that's because you're sustainable in Los Angeles.
Those two things don't go together. It's like New York, right? Like the stories that have poured in paint a picture of an industry where thousands are fighting to find jobs as studios outsource more of them to other countries, while those that do find employment face burnout from an ever-increasing workload beyond their job description. Oh, my God. If only someone had been saying this for like the last 3 years, but they don't. They said the message to those animators is clear. Get involved with the Animation Guild, which is beginning its contract negotiations next week. Now, I don't think this is going to work out the way they think it's going to work out. And this isn't me shitting on unions again, but I'm going to tell you, if they're cutting back and your rate goes up, they're going to go someplace else.
Well, that's exactly what's been going on. I mean, the rates are already too high now.
Yeah.
Before they get a new contract.
Yeah, before. Yeah. And we're already seeing Disney's preparing. Like they're already outsourcing stuff to Canada.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These other places, they have no problem getting it done for a little bit less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because of the demand for living in places like California.
Yeah. This is the thing. They want to keep animation in California. And that is actually probably the biggest blow is because the cost of living is so damn high in California. And it's like, guys, I don't know where you think this money is going to come from. I mean, again, you're going to get like one Inside Out 2 for every how many freaking Netflix shows that didn't work out. And Netflix, actually, they talk about this. They're slashing shows. So this is, who is this person? This is Mike Rianda, the guy who directed The Mitchells versus Machines, which was very good, by the way. But they said, we have union members on the brink of homelessness. A job that once provided a reliable income is becoming less and less viable. What do we have to lose? Why not get loud? Why not get crazy? Why not put everything we've got into this?
Well, because you're going to lose everything is what's going to happen. But again, if you answer the question, if you can't, if it's not viable, then you have to do something else. Either start your own thing, go maybe find a studio that hires from outside of, expensive areas and let you work from home. I don't know what to tell you because you want more. And while some people might get more, a lot of you are going to get nothing because they're going to get rid of people.
Here's the thing. This is kind of like with comic books too. People are like, why is the comic book industry in such a decimated state right now? Why are the page rates so low? Because you have more people that want to work in that industry than the industry can actually support. So you're going to have this massive income, inequality because you're going to have, the people actually perform or actually making money. But then you've got so many people that are willing to work for like $50 a page or whatever. And in this case, like we've seen these people for years. Like we didn't just fall off the turnip truck, right? Like we were doing the webcomic thing. We were doing comics before we started doing YouTube. We're talking going back 15 years at least. And there are all these kids on Tumblr, all these kids on social media. Like, I want to work in the animation industry. I'm going to school I'm going to SCAD. I'm going to, retail's beneath me. I'm going to go get a job as an animator and I'm going to just pack it all up and move to Burbank and see what happens. And there are so many of you and the industry can't support all of them. So what we're going to see, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but we're going to see a shakeout. We're going to see the people that actually perform, that actually produce shows that make money are going to get to stay and everybody else is going to get kicked to the curb.
And that might even be if they're sending other places because it's cheaper.
Well, what's going to happen is it's just going to be like the writer's room, right? We're going to have the showrunner. And even now, like everybody's like, oh, animators are out of work. I'm like, most of the animation's done overseas anyway. Like these people that are quote unquote working in the animation industry, but they're not actually animators. They're doing storyboards that they send off to Korea.
I was thinking you can't swing a dead cat about how many storyboard artists.
Yeah, I know,
like
right?
Everybody and their brother's a storyboard artist.
But they're talking about AI, and AI is definitely going to cut out. Now, I don't know what they're worried about because this isn't like back in the day where you had Walt Disney overseeing a studio full of people that were hunched over a drawing table, right? These people do the storyboards, they do the scripts, and then they send them off to Korea. And then Korea sends them to China, but we don't talk about that. And then China sends it to North Korea. And we don't talk about that, but they're getting busted. That's how they keep the costs down, right?
Yeah.
And if they have to pay everybody a living wage here in the States, they're not going to greenlight shit. They're not going to greenlight anything because the only reason there's as much getting made as there is because it's cheap. And as soon as it's not cheap, we're going back to reality TV. That's what we're doing. Anyway, they said, yeah, there's an Animation Guild member who said we're artists, we're animation workers, and we're making starvation wages in a lot of cases.
Okay. What would be starvation wages? Because I guarantee the starvation wages for them are more than what most people get everywhere else. Don't be an animator in LA.
Here's the wonderful thing about technology, right? The wonderful thing about technology, and I talked about this in the podcast.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, technology is a wonderful thing because you can literally live anywhere. And I thought that was the plan. Remember during the pandemic? Hey, the animators are all going to work at home. They're going to go move someplace cheaper like Idaho or something, and they're going to just fax it in to Netflix. And that didn't work out because you're still too expensive. They're going to ship it off to India or something. They said, yeah, we see how the bosses thank us for these record profits. It's by putting us in the unemployment line. But for every Inside Out 2, how many like Ruby Gillmans?
Okay, right now, as of July 16th, the average hourly pay for animation in Hollywood is $38.76 an hour.
$38 an hour? That's average. So you got people making more than that. Well, you got some people making a lot, but that's LA.
My average salary for an animator in LA, according to Glassdoor, is about $70,000 a year in Hollywood.
Which in Hollywood's not going to go very far.
No, but anyplace else that's like really good. But
anyplace else, you could be a homeowner. You could be, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like, Yeah, for a grunt animator in LA, that's not great. But I mean, you're asking for more money. This is what I don't understand. I don't get this. We know the economy is in shitty shape right now. We know that all these studios are contracting. We know that, but that now they're choosing to go on strike and ask for more money. And I know how it's going to end. Like I said, there's a whole, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's a union Hollywood person. And she's been documenting how ever since the strikes, the contracts were ratified, all the work dried up. Like nobody's greenlighting new shows, or if they're getting shows like Netflix, they're going to other countries to get shows. And you got what you wanted, but you've just made sure that they shrunk the industry even more than it was, right? Like, I don't know what they expect. You're not going to have them, if it's going to cost more, they're not going to greenlight a whole bunch of new cartoon shows at 3 times the expense. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, do I think that 70,000 is crap, in LA? Yes. Do I think that, but like here, I'm looking at ZipRecruiter and they're saying salaries as high as $64.38 an hour to low as $9.70 an hour. Is that somebody like cleaning floors? The majority of animator salaries currently range between $20.05, the 25th percentile, to $58.65, 75th percentile. Top earners in the 90th percentile making annually in Hollywood. The average pay rate for an animator varies greatly, as much as $38.61. There may be opportunities for advancement, increased pay based on skill level, location, and years of experience.
Right.
So that's what they're saying on ZipRecruiter.
So they're talking about the merchandising opportunities. They're talking about Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Avatar. I'm like, here's the thing. They don't need to make any new Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Avatar shows to sell merchandise. That nostalgia, that's a hell of a drug. People from our generation are going to buy Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. Till they ruin it, right? But a lot of times, like, what they're leaning into is actually the retro, the 80s versions of the characters, even though they're making new shows. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could stop making any Transformers cartoon shows and just keep remaking. And that's what they're doing now with the collectors. They're just remaking the same toys again and again and again. And with all the other stuff, like Ninja Turtles, they had like a $200 backpack with like an LED arcade screen on it or whatever.
Yeah, launch one.
Yeah. And they're going back to the 80s and they're doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I get it if they have a new Avatar, but we haven't had a cartoon show that was on the same level as Avatar for a number of years. And the Netflix shows don't really bring it. They might bring views, but I don't know if people are buying the merchandise. But they're talking about Pixar, how they laid people off.
But you have to remember too, they said they'd lay off a bunch of people because they were like wrapping up projects and they'd probably scrap some. So they just got rid of people, which, they all already said that they're going to do a lot of movies, but they're going to do like for every one new thing, they're going to do 2 sequels. So they still need people, but I don't know if they need people like they used to need people, kind of thing.
Well, that's what they said. They were talking about Netflix even, because Netflix, they got that whole big ass campus and they were going to let people work from home. And it was, that was going to save Hollywood during the pandemic. And then as soon as everybody went back to work, as soon as they, stopped the lockdowns, it's just like, oh yeah, screw cartoons. Cartoons. It said the streamer was planning on reducing the number of in-house animated productions to 2 per year, lowering the number of job opportunities. Yeah.
In-house. See, they said in-house?
Yes, because...
that's just it. That is it, in-house. Because they're shipping it to other companies. They're just buying content from other people and independent studios. Skydance
is going to be doing the bulk of Netflix's animated features, from my understanding, under John Lasseter. And they're also getting more and more anime. The anime is already, for the most part, it's already done. It might be a co-production or something, but they're not going to do it in-house. We're not going to see any more of this Tumblr era fanfic shit being done. Now, I did read that the people behind Netflix, She-Ra, seem to think that they're going to get a movie, or they're hoping to get a movie.
I thought that was funny. It made me laugh.
Sometime. Maybe they will.
If they do,
I don't know.
If they do, then then it's a write-off or something, because I can't. Why would you waste money on that? We're just talking about how they're trying to cut cost animation, or cutting animation. Why would you spend money on that?
I think they watch our channel, because I actually pointed out the Madrid studio at Skydance. They said, while Disney continues much of its feature work in Burbank, the studio opened a second studio in Vancouver in 2021. They didn't tell anybody about it either. They just did it. Then they like kind of on the download did Moana 2 up there. Universal's Illumination does significant animation in Paris, and Skydance is doing more animation in Madrid. Do you see a pattern here? It doesn't involve everybody centralizing everything in LA anymore.
No, because you can do it from anywhere. I mean, and honestly, I'll even argue they could probably get animators that have US animators and get it cheaper than some of the other countries. If they let people just do it from like home and like, turn your work in, they probably can get them far cheaper because there's animators all across the country that could live. You could live in a place that's way lower cost of living and still they could pay you a livable wage. And that would still be a lot less money they're paying. Yeah. I have a list here of some of the jobs they have on ZipRecruiter for animators. Job title, contract concept artist, $125,709 a year, $60.44 an hour. Animation engineer, $121,814 a year, $58.56 an hour. Flash artist, $119,436 a year, $57.42 an hour. Character design artist, $114,072 a year, et cetera, et cetera. Platform artist, $111,888 a year, et cetera.
Jeez.
Now, they're not all in California, though. Some of them are in Florida, and different places.
Boy, I bet Disney really regrets closing down the Florida animation studio.
Probably.
Because
I miss it.
Yeah. They could have got some cheap labor, but yeah, they're talking about job creep. I mean, this happens, but they said that a lot of animators are taking on extra work at the job because they're afraid to say no because they know that if they say no, it's going to get outsourced.
Happens across many industries. I know a lot of places they'll get rid of people and demand people to stay do more.
Yeah, they're talking color designers are expected to finish models of characters. So yeah, it's job creep. But they said once the COVID safety protocols were lifted, major studios began requiring workers to go back to the office. Again, they were going to outsource or let people work from home. And they said, but from an employer's point of view, it's like, okay, I can let you work from home for this much money, or I can get more work from another country because you cost too much. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
I'm not saying it's right.
I'm not saying it's right. I will be very, very clear.
We're just saying this is the reality of the situation. People are like, listen, there's a difference between saying something is right or wrong and saying this is the reality. That's the difference.
That was the case. The one company I worked for, they started letting people work from home, but then they were like, well, we can let you work from home and pay you this much money, or we can go to like India and get somebody that's just as qualified. We can actually get 3 people in India for what we're paying you. And that's how these companies look at it, especially these studios they are cash strapped. They burnt a lot of money chasing streaming. The reason that there were all these animated series for years was because they needed streaming content. And they thought, well, we'll make a bunch of cartoons and the parents will, buy the streaming service or subscribe to it for the kids. And now they're like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. We got so much old stuff. It doesn't matter. They said that, this person couldn't afford to move back to LA. And we heard about that with Disney too. Like the Imagineers, they sold their houses in LA.
Okay. But real quick, I'm the sole breadwinner for my wife and 2 kids, but I have lingering student debt after 15 years in the industry. Well, join the club. You can't move back to LA. I don't have equity in a house. Again, a lot of people don't. I don't have the savings. A lot of people don't. I've worked hard. I've worked long hours production. Despite my experience, I've lost potential jobs at Disney and Warner because they required work at their offices in Burbank. This happens. But like the whole idea of like, oh, I've worked for this year and I still have a student loan. You know what? Student loan's the biggest scam ever because you can do everything right and still owe, and then somehow you owe them way more than you ever borrowed. No matter what you do. Yeah. I can tell from experience. And a lot of people don't have equity. A lot of people don't have savings. A lot of people don't have retirement. It is what it is. It sucks. I'm not saying it's right, but it's not just this person. It's not just animation.
Yeah, I keep telling people, and again, not to be Debbie Downer, I've been around the block a few times. Like outside of the creative industry, I think you need to have other job skills because creative careers have an ebb and flow to them, right? And this is why we always hear these stories about these washed up child stars or washed up, Hollywood writers. This person was big like 20 years ago, now nobody cares, and sometimes their career comes back and sometimes it doesn't. But you can't just assume that you're going to be working in the creative fields forever, right?
But to this person's credit, they don't live in LA.
No. But the thing is that because you don't live in LA, you can still do your stuff. You can do it do it on your own.
Well, they said they got a freelance project that'll keep them employed at the end of the year. So I'm glad you did. Good to hear. But they said that, he's unsure how many jobs like this still exist for animators who have left LA behind. I don't know. I think you might be in a good position personally, because as they keep not wanting to hire LA studios because of the unions, because of the expense, people like this person,
scabs,
might actually, no, but they might actually have more opportunity at they're more cost effective. So I wouldn't give up yet, dude.
Yeah, I would. I actually, at this point, I mean, it's going to piss people off, but I would never join the union anyway, unless I absolutely had to, because I'd want to keep my options open and I'd want to be competitive. If our studio could come in, hypothetically speaking, we have a studio and our studio could come in cheaper and we could still get it done and do it. You know what I'm saying? I would do it. And that's going to piss people off, but we don't live in LA, so we can do whatever the hell we want.
Never would live. You couldn't pay me to live in LA.
You could not pay me.
No offense to those of you who live in LA, but no way in hell.
Yep. They said, they're basically trying to use Inside Out 2 as a reason to get more money, but I'm like, that is a rarity. So they're saying that the impact on their work is indispensable, which is true. It is true. But, here's the problem. Basically, all content is looked at as being content now. It doesn't matter if it's art. We're not making high art anymore, unfortunately. I mean, there are some very good programs out there, some very good movies out there, but the studios, you're not working for Walt Disney himself anymore. You're working for the Disney Corporation that needs to turn a profit, and they're going to do whatever they can do. And as long as the public keeps buying it, even if it's subpar, they don't care where it gets made. They don't.
They just want it made.
So you're going to have to do what's best for you.
I mean, I'll just be honest. I think some places are completely aware it's going to North Korea. They just pretend like they don't know.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Because that's where it's cheap, and they pretend like they don't know because they know they'll get their asses kicked if they do.
And they're not going to say anything about it, because here's the thing. If you can make a show for half as much money by outsourcing it to South Korea, then you plausible.
North Korea.
Well, no, you sent it to South Korea. They sent it to China, and then China sends it to North Korea.
Yeah.
And all the big studios are doing this. They all know that that's how it's done, but they have plausible deniability.
But, they have all these different steps in between with middleman taking money out. You could have just hired somebody, in the U.S. who lives someplace else or has a group someplace else that doesn't cost as much as L.A. and probably save money.
I don't know if you can, because we talked about Netflix getting in trouble with, I think it was a Carmen Sandiego show, and they sent to the Philippines. And some of these people were only getting like $50 a week.
Well, that's true. But I'm just saying, though, I'm talking about the ones where they're going to South Korea, and then South Korea sending it to China, and then China sending it to North Korea. How many different cuts these people take? You could have just did it here. Yeah. And not in LA.
But I think again, this is another blow against the LA animation scene. Cartoon Network getting rid of their offices, and all stuff just becoming a brand. I think the LA, Burbank, Glendale animation scene is done. I don't think it's ever going to come back to what it was before. Even if they get their, what the union wants, there are going to be fewer jobs, and they'll just outsource more. And this is just the way it is. And I'm sorry. It sucks. It does suck, especially if you uprooted your whole life and you moved to California. I'm going to live the dream. I'm going to go work for Disney, and I'm going to go work for DreamWorks. I'm going to whatever. They're corporate owned. They're going to do what they're going to do. Right. Mm-hmm. But you can still make art. You can still, look at some of the animators on YouTube, how well they've done for themselves.
That's true.
So it's, I don't know.
There's other ways.
There's other ways to do it. So we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later.
Bye.